Chapter 11 is one of those chapters where we discuss various subjects, kind of like chapter 1 if you recall that. So it contains a discussion of adverbs, but also various other components of language. Adverbs we know in English as that part of speech that modifies verbs, but it's far more broadly defined in Greek. So in English we know it as I finish quickly, for example, because adverbs answer questions regarding time, place, and manner, and that in regard to verb action. So pretty much answers when, where, or how. So adverbs principally can modify substantives like adjectives. The man outside is my father, which would answer where. They can act like prepositions and take noun objects. The man outside the house is my father. And they can act like substantives as the objects of a preposition in Greek, even taking an article in construction. So we see a Greek phrase apo to noon, from the present. And of course, you look at it, the glass can also mean now. So adverbs are pretty versatile in Greek. Stevens here points out that we don't have to worry about memorizing more because they're not inflected. You can pretty much recognize them if they're not the kind of workhorse type of words, then pretty much you recognize them by their omega final sigma ending. Stevens kind of like does a funny thing after he says, well, they end with omega final sigma ending. Then the next couple of examples are the ones that do not end like that. He gives an example with noon, Pauline. What does he have here? Autos, another noon, another ekai, and ano. And it's only until we get to another place that that kind of starts working like that. So it's kind of funny how he envisions that. But we'll get a little bit further along the line to discuss a little bit more about the adverbs. Something else in this chapter then would be dealing with comparisons. First of all, we have the adjective comparisons. So we have to wonder, how do you express degrees of comparison? Well, in English, we have some that do that in a very consistent way, where you have the positive, it will be new, and then we have a different ending for the comparative, so you have new, newer, and then the superlative, one step up, would be ust, newest, new, newer, newest. So Greek has a similar system there, where you would have the base word, the positive, neos, then the comparative, where we add teras, neoteras, and the superlative would be neotatas. So you see that we have a formation system in English and we have a formation system in Greek, but we also know that we are not always consistent in English. So you have high, higher, highest, but you also have good, better, best, not good, gooder, goodest. So Greek has the same problem, that not everything follows a same kind of system. So we're going to see that we have some inconsistency there as well. So we have substantival use. So just like with any adjective, an adjective degree form can be used. So that would be yet another way to control this idea of expressing comparison. And you can do that with the help of an article. So ha elakistos means the least, and it could be the subject or the predicate complement, or some other nominative case role. So look for the nominative. So as Greek developed over time, they came up with some other ways to do this. So you have the regular ones, where you see they use the ending teras, or there are some ways to simply just use words that were developed, like hagiotate. Okay. Or here, the construction with the article, ha elakistos, ha mikrateron, notice that it has the mikrateron ending, and then we have some highly irregular ones. where you simply have to memorize the words. Pleion, Keron, those all have to be memorized. Well, those are the adjectival comparisons. We also can use adverbs, and so this explains why this is all tossed into the chapter with the adverbs. And so we can have some degrees here. Luckily they're not inflected, remember. But there are some frequently occurring words like malone, which would be more, or the superlative version of that, malista, or malista, yeah. And some other ones that we see a little bit less frequently, like anoteron, because it has the ending in use there. But you really quite more frankly see malone and malista. Now notice that in English we often like to use the word than to convey that. You don't see the word then in Greek, but we have to add that in English to create an element of functionality in the Greek language. So what kind of adverb constructions can we come up with? Well, we have what we call the ablative of comparison. Remember that subgroup of the genitive? So 3 basic constructions. The first is you can put the substantive after the comparative adjective. Notice this is in a genitive case, and then you have the ablative function, right? You can do so without using a preposition, so you'll have to recognize that. It's kind of like how you recognized a relative connection, like Mary and mother. That would be Mary, the mother of. Here you see the setup. A servant is not greater, metzon. So it's set up with this idea of greater. And then it says in the genitive to kuriou autou. And we would provide the word than because it sets it up as a comparison. This can also be done in the accusative, but in that case you will need the assistance of a preposition, either para or huper. So huper, sharper than, notice that it has the teras. And then pasan makairan distomon, so the two-edged sword, and we provide the then. You can also set up a comparison with the eta here, and notice that the eta has a smooth breathing here, and so that would then create the idea of then setting up a construction. And you see this here, it has it within the Greek language there. And we know that there's a genitive of relationship where we simply put names together and we use that as implied relationships. We also throw the numerals into this chapter because we have a couple of them that they use in an adverbial manner. Numbers 1 through 4 are inflected with declensions, and then 5 to 9 are not inflected. So just a matter of memorizations. Notice the teens, and then beyond that 20 numbers. It's just a sheer matter of memorization. Now the ordinals are numbered, first, second, and third, and so on. You can actually pick them out. Ha, deuteros, ha, tritos, the second, and the third. Okay, so because a few cardinal numbers are actually used as adverbs, we justify throwing it into this particular chapter, and so that would translate into the use of once or twice, and so on and so forth, and so they are not necessarily inflected. Okay, then we can also use particular words as clause connectors. For this, it's important that you review in English what dependent and independent clauses are. That's the only way for you to understand why we need even clause connectors. Okay, so coordinate conjunctions typically join items of equal grammatical rank. Only coordinate conjunctions can connect independent clauses. So we have 4 coordinate conjunctions. We have and, but, therefore, and for. And they connect clauses expressing copulative, adversative, inferential, and cause. So different jobs. You can have the copulative, And the workhorse coordinate copulative is kai. And we can just string entire sentences with that. End. Okay, and you see some of that in scripture going on and on and on. Adversative would be but, or yet, or rather. You can also use that, a little bit weaker. Notice that that's a post positive, but we translate it now, sometimes even and. Inferential would be like a therefore, Paul likes that. And causal would be the idea of because, and we use gar. So you use that to connect independent clauses. And now dependent clauses, of course, they depend on an independent prior clause, and so you glue those together with specific words like hati. We know that she said to them, and then there is an introduction to an open clause. And dependent, you can have adjective clauses and you can have adverbial clauses. The main thing here for this chapter is, if you don't get this, it's not a matter of not understanding Greek. You will have to go to the chapters in the back of this book and study English. Okay, so go back to the sentences and a chapter and study clauses in English.